The post 9/11 community is characterized by two things. Everyone is scared and everyone is lying.
The reason we went to Afghanistan first was to find Osama bin Laden and bomb him out of his caves. That was the original reason. Now the reason is to free the women. They can't decide what reason we are there for.
An exchange on 9/11 between Professor Niels Harrit, Professor Anthony J. Hall, and Ms. Pernille Grumme. Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, February 22nd, 2011.
There's very few people actually have been informed at all about what happened on the September 11th. And this is a global phenomenon that the mainstream press are actually suppressing what really happened. And putting down in one single sentence, you should notice that there were 2 airliners, but there were 3 skyscrapers. Very few people are aware at all that there was a 3rd skyscraper collapsing late in the afternoon on September 11th. And I think this is number one. I mean, if you can count to 3, you should recognize that there's something fishy around here.
2 planes going into 2 buildings, making 3 buildings come down. What about, that's not high math to figure out.
It is not high math.
1 plus 1 does not equal 3.
Just do your math and you'll find out that there's something here which should be looked closer at.
So when did you find out about building number 7?
By Professor Stephen A. Jones from the Brigham Young University in Utah. And he showed, among other things, Building 7, very much concentrated building. Very famous lecture, one of the first actually academics who went out in an academic setting presenting to his colleagues. And it was it's a very moving performance. It's a little casual, but the substance of the message, what he's saying, is speaking louder than words. It has become a very bad career move to deal with these matters at all. And this is not specific for academia, but many things have changed within academia in the last 10 years. The post 9/11 community is characterized by 2 things. Everyone is scared and everyone is lying. And even to yourself. And this is number one.
Lying to yourself.
Yeah, and this is number 1 amendment of Bertrand Russell, the famous British philosopher, saying, never lie to yourself. But of course, you can survive on your knees, but
then when you look at the implications of how 9/11, a certain interpretation of 9/11 have been used to justify the Patriot Act, the attack on civil liberties domestically within many countries, the invasions, the illegal occupations, whether we're talking about Afghanistan, Iraq, increasingly Pakistan, Yemen, who knows how this recent so-called Arab uprising is going to be exploited for other kinds of intervention. When you see the enormous geopolitical transformations in global history, all based on this interpretation of 9/11, which was given to us the same day, a fully, developed interpretation that really has continued now 10 years later, the same spurious, specious, fraudulent interpretation. Those of us who take time to look at the evidence, doesn't it seem like very onerous? It seems that the universities have failed in a huge and dramatic way when our mission is to identify truth from fiction, truth from lies. And when lies are given such tremendous currency and treated as the basis for foreign policy, for domestic policy, by governments, by corporations, what do we do in the academy to address, our failure, our failure within the professorial community?
We're trying all the time.
Yeah, we're passing out flyers here in the street. Exactly. Yeah. This is what everyone is doing in the 9/11 Truth Movement. Every single individual is acting from an inner urge, asking themselves, what can I do? And this is what they do. I used to say, you do not find 9/11. It's 9/11 who finds you. And 9/11 happened to find me at the University of Copenhagen, the chemistry department. that this was my duty. I can read the technical reports, so I felt it my duty as a human being, as an academic, as a grandfather, to do what I had to do. And this is what, and it moves me so much each time I think about it. This is going on globally, all over the world, that everyone in the 9/11 movement are acting on their own from an inner urge, and doing what they can do wherever they are. And now we are here on Churchill Square in Edmonton.
Yes.
And we are passing out flyers because this is what we have to do right now.
Kind of similar to this Tahrir Square movement that seems to be spreading around the world, that the oppressions are becoming so severe. Mubarak is not an isolated phenomena. He's part of a worldwide system of oppression that is as real here in other ways in North America or Europe as it is in Egypt, as it is in the Arab-speaking world. And people can't stand it anymore and are finding ways to come to places like this square here in Edmonton. We talked about the concept of going to your civic square all over the world.
Right.
And the Tahrir Square movement being a global phenomena. It's not an issue of Arab people being oppressed, of Israeli people being oppressed, of Wisconsin people being oppressed. We're in a global system, an economic system primarily, that plays itself out through politics and through the military machinery.
So we should be aware we are up against, because every politician in the world, all the Mubaraks, they love the war on terror. Every politician, irrespective of country or anything, because all the politicians fear the people. So they jump on every occasion to reduce our civil rights. And the war on terror is such an opportunity for all of them, irrespective of which country you are, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Europe, North America, everywhere, they love it.
China, you have dissidents, and you say those dissidents are possible terrorists.
Yeah.
And then, so the rules don't apply. You don't have to have due process. You don't have to listen to their arguments. You just demonize people, you stereotype people, and you dehumanize them, and you prepare them for terrible outcomes. Concentration camps, gas chambers. I mean, this is not extravagant talk, given that we've seen how many millions displaced in Iraq, how many millions murdered in the name of this war on terror. It's very important to be conscious of the Holocaust that took place in the Second World War, and the role of collaborators in, say, Denmark on those human tragedies. To be conscious of that. But what about the Holocaust in our own times, and the what's going on now? And is it not a new form of Holocaust denial to look away from this and say, this is not expedient for my career to notice that lies prevail and truth is being suppressed?
Yeah. Well, I remember that next time they come up with this Holocaust, because you are the Holocaust denier. This is what we should tell you.
Who is denying what?
Who is denying what?
Who won't open their eyes and open their ears?
I mean, the crimes against humanity in the Second World War, we call them crimes against humanity. They were crimes against all of us.
Yeah.
And so the crimes of torture in Egypt are crimes against humanity. So the failure to put Mubarak in a court of law, the failure to put George Bush in a court of law, the failure to put Dick Cheney in a court of law, where they are given every opportunity to defend themselves. We're not going to say that they're guilty before proven so. We want to hear their defense. But this idea that, no, these are rich and powerful people, their wealth is in the billions or the trillions, they're leaders of countries, they don't have to answer for their decisions, for their actions. Our laws only apply to middle-class people or poor people. That's unacceptable. That is not law. That is tyranny. And where do we draw the line? I mean, what about our jurists? What about the law departments in our universities?
Right, yeah. So many of them, they don't know still. We still have to keep doing presentations, telling them about it.
Yeah.
Many of them do not know.
But at 10 years later, how much can you say we didn't know? How many Germans said, we didn't know?
No, that's it.
The state was telling us.
Exactly. That's a sentence I remember all the time. Traudl Junge, you know her? Hitler's secretary. And she said, ich habe ja nichts gewusst, wir haben ja nichts gewusst. She said that.
And this is the person closest to Hitler,
Yes,
doing his
yes,
business
yes.
every day, and she says, I didn't know.
No, and we're trying to inform them, and they won't listen. So of course they don't know because they don't want to know. So that's exactly
Yes.
why they're not listening. We've been with so many journalists. They turn around, they walk away, they won't listen. They say we don't believe it, and then they walk away.
Right over there is the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation.
Yes.
The day that we organized in Calgary, Alberta, which is the other big city of Alberta, Calgary, to arrest George Bush.
Yes.
And we had quite a credible group of hundreds of people outside the TELUS Convention Center with George Bush giving his first speech after his presidency. And the mainstream media like CBC in Alberta would not cover the reality that we were not simply complaining about George Bush. We were pointing at Canadian law enforcement officials and saying, do your job. We have in Canada, for instance, a War Crimes and Crimes Against Humanity Act, a domestic law passed in 2000, which says Canada is not to be a haven for war criminals. So why was that law not being enforced on George Bush? Then when our friend and colleague Splitting the Sky attempted to make a citizen's arrest, CBC covered it up. So this concerted effort not to be informed, to keep yourself uninformed, and of agencies whose job is to inform the public, when they don't do those jobs, it seems to me those are part of the criminal activities that we have to address, and it's a criminal problem.
Yes.
I mean, every genocide is preceded by events that somehow dehumanize those being targeted for dehumanization, for elimination, for incarceration, for torture. And the way 9/11 is presented to this day has the effect of demonizing all Islamic people, all Arab people. And how is this conscionable? How do we respond as public intellectuals, as professors, as those given a lot of privileges that should carry a lot of responsibility, but when we see that responsibility so often being denied in the name of it's not good for my career, it's I need to get a grant, I can't put myself at risk, I can't put my family at risk. How far can those kind of arguments take me?
Okay. 9/11 is happening every day since McKinney said that.
Yeah.
So maybe that will be.
And what is happening every day? What do you
Deceit,
mean?
lies, and also the consequences of 9/11 are happening every day. We are being lied to every day. This is what she means. 9/11 is happening every day. We're being lied to every day. And what should we do? Each individual should answer this, and this is what the 9/11 movement does. Each individual is providing an answer to your question on their own.
And what I see in the movement is a sense that, sure, we're lied to all the time. What's the big deal? We all know we're being lied to all the time. More and more by, the mainstream media. There really isn't investigative journalism that exists very much anymore.
Yeah.
But all the so-called truthers, those who seek the truth of 9/11, we all come to the conclusion that this particular set of lies is of such huge consequence, and it's so audacious. It's not, although it's good to have scientists who have high degrees and can conduct these kinds of investigations, it's really not that complex when you get into it. It's obvious that especially Building 7 fell through controlled demolition. It looks like controlled demolition. The onus would be on those to say why it's not controlled demolition. This looks to me like a table. Do I have a PhD in tableology? No, I've seen a lot of tables. This looks to me like a table. That looks like a controlled demolition. It doesn't look like a fire that got that melted a strategic pillar or something that we're told. It's such a huge fabrication. If we can be made to accept this, what else can we be made to accept?
Good. Yeah, we have to wait. We won't accept it.